Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin wa ashabihi al-muntajibin. Amma ba'd. We often feel that we are not leading substantive lives and that our lives are not as meaningful as they ought to be. And that is a very true feeling that we have within ourselves because there is a greater truth trying to awaken from within us. This state of not being satisfied, this state of restlessness is an inherent state within our humanity because there is a deeper calling and we need to find that particular truth within us. Now the Quran does say that with the remembrance of Allah do the hearts find rest. But of course there's a method to it as well. We want to find ourselves, we want to live properly, but we do not know how to. Now at times we appoint a goal for ourselves in the name of God. And that's all fine. God represents the entirety of the beauty that we want to achieve within ourselves. But the way we understand God is a master, someone that we need to worship, someone to whom we need to show obedience. But then we find during the course of all these acts of obedience, loyalty to God, we do not arrive still at that point of satisfaction and inner rest and peace. What this shows is that there is a way to approach God and a way to find God. Finding God is not seeing somebody that is other than us. But finding God in the rightest sense means to unite with God, to allow God to emerge from within us, and that is the meeting point with God. Now when we say we want to go towards God, we use our human sentiments, our humanity with those positive connotations that humanity has, the word, that we become the most liberated, the most charitable, the most forgiving, so on and so forth. But that's a notional God. And He does not arrive through such aspirations, nor through excessive devotions. What we need to do instead is to revert to the state of our humanness. So whereas humanity is what we aspire for, our humanness is what takes us there. What do I mean by humanness? What makes us human to the core, with all our sorrows, misgivings, failures, momentary joys, worldly successes. This is what is our humanness. We get angry, we get pleased, all this variety of states that make us what we are, our weakness, our frailty. This state of humanness, if acknowledged accurately, and if we can understand ourselves properly, then that becomes the surest method through which to find God. How? Let us take draw our attentions to the dua of Imam Ali, attributed to Imam Ali, the munajat of Imam Ali, that we normally recite on the nights of Ramadan. Now here in this munajat, the whispered prayer, Imam Ali looks at God as the most perfect, the most beautiful. And he looks at himself in relation to that attribute that he's attributing to God in the reverse, i.e. in the sense of lack and negative. And then he then relates to God through that lack in a very meaningful manner. So for example, Imam Ali says to Allah, "You are the living, I am the dying." And does the one who is dying turn to anyone but the one who is ever living? You are the one with all knowledge. I am the one who is ignorant. Can the one who is ignorant turn to anybody but the one who possesses all knowledge? So he is making his lack a means to find God and to relieve his lack not through acquisition of the completion of that lack, but through the acquisition of God. So there's a huge difference. When we say to Allah, I am the one who is ignorant. You are the one who is all-knowing. Now, I will read books to become all-knowing. That is not what Imam Ali is teaching. He is teaching instead that, oh Allah, let me acknowledge you are all-knowing through my state of lack. Embrace my state of lack of knowledge, acknowledge it, and then proclaim you as the most knowing and seek this enlightenment through you, so that it is your knowledge that penetrates deep within me and it brings me to the fullness of my existence in resembling you. So the secret is that when we are fearful, we turn to Allah and say, you are in all control. How can I, who is in a state of fear, turn to anybody other than the one who is in a state of most control? Now, then we need to say to Allah that, oh Allah, now I will no longer yearn to find control for myself. Instead, I will rely upon you, believing in your ability to control. And I give myself over to you. Now at this point, what happens is that we begin to overcome the fear by knowing that the one who is in all control, who possesses all control, can do whatever he wants for me. And if he chooses not to, then in that case, I should be happy with whatever he has chosen. In this way, our insecurity, fear fades away in utmost security through God. Similarly, when we say to Allah, you are the most merciful and I lack mercy, I acknowledge in myself that I am unable to let go of the hurts that people have given to me. But you are the most merciful. I turn to you, O the most merciful, to make me as merciful as you are. Now here what will happen is that, as opposed to a lip service of forgiveness, what we will do is, from the depth of our heart, we will acknowledge this lack, that we lack mercy, and we will begin to forgive the people who we assume have transgressed against us. And in that way, we will come to the completion of our mercy by allowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to emerge from within ourselves. We can do this with every single facet of our personality. Our lack of trust, our suspicions, so on and so forth. But we also have to acknowledge at that deep level that, oh Allah, when I, at the final analysis, look at myself, I find that I am deeply suspicious of you. Even though I proclaim that you are the most beautiful one, you have my best interest at heart, but my mind does not really acknowledge that accurately, because I do feel that things that are happening to me should not be happening to me. Even though I say, you destine the best, yet I am not pleased with what you have destined. Even though I say, you are my Lord who loves me, yet when I get sick, I do not see it as your love. Even though I say that you are my friend, yet I'm suspicious of your intentions. To become brutally honest with God, very authentic with God, and say to God, my deep-seated problem at the core of it is that I am actually suspicious of you. I want to acknowledge that. And I want you to help me get over this suspicion that I have of you. In one of the du'as, Imam Zainul Abidin states that, oh Allah, allow me not to have any doubt with regards to you. And he was being very genuine and very, very honest. We need to do the same, to say to Allah, overpower this situation of mine from within. I am acknowledging to you, I'm not pretending anymore, that I do not have sufficient confidence in you. And I need you to instill that confidence within my soul. Once we start practicing our relationship with Allah in this way, what we will find is that we will become far more in tune with our own selves. At this point in time, our worship and devotion to God is very superficial, and I do not mean this in a disrespectful manner. I talk to myself through these words of admonition. It's very superficial. God is not really to be found there. And as a result, despite all the devotions to God, we still find that deep lack of existence. We are living, but we are not alive. That is only because we try to relate to God through the minds and through the bodily actions. The act of giving charity, we feel, is something we are doing in the way of God. But the fact that it does not bring that grounded existence within us shows that that act has not been effective to the level to which it ought to have been effective. Now, if you look at the act of charity of the Imams, let us say, they would give in the way of God, then they would turn to God and they would thank Allah and become tearful and sob and say to Allah, thank you for allowing me to execute a duty that was incumbent upon me of sharing what was yours that you had given to me in trust that belonged to the other. So the attitude is totally different, and an act of giving at that point substantively connected them with reality. When we do good, we normally feel happy. This sense of happiness in itself shows that there is a barrier between us and between God. For a person who does good, their joy is that, oh Allah, thank you for accepting me and for allowing me. And I feel utmost humbled, and I do not know how to raise my head to you and thank you for it because I feel unworthy of it. These are the sort of sentiments that need to accompany the soul when we are doing righteous deeds. But that only comes when we have acknowledged that deep-seated sense of lack, and we connect through that lack with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now comes the question of hurt. I want to revisit it. When we are wronged by people, what happens is that those people wrong us, seek their forgiveness, and move on their journey. But we want to hold on to that feeling of hurt. It is as if this negative emotion feeds us. Now we feed off that negative emotion and thinking that we are the victims, and we actually rejoice in some sort of a masochistic fashion. But we need to analyze this to say, well, this is less than befitting because it's consuming me. And on the other hand, if I were to turn to God, God will say to me, well, I created that opportunity for somebody to hurt you, for you to feel hurt, so that you can turn to me at that instance, and through that hurt, find me and ask me to assist you to let go of that hurt, so that you might become a bigger being. Ultimately, God says to us in the Quran that if you were to die in my way, or if you were to be killed, then you're coming back to me. Isn't that better for you? As if to say that, look, I am the only one that matters. You need to attain me. Attaining me here is not by doing good deeds, but attaining me in the rightest sense is to allow me to prevail through your being. And the only way you will allow that is through your humanness, acknowledging your state of lack and making that lack a means to me as God and allowing me to prevail over your being. I'm going to stop at that for today. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much, Shaykh. If anybody has any questions, you can raise your hand on Zoom under participants. And whenever I see that your hand is raised, I'm going to unmute you and you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Alaikum assalam.
I'm referring to 3 weeks ago when you mentioned that we have traits of DNA in us. I mean, everybody gets traits. Some are positive, some are negative. So how much of it are we responsible? Because it seems that the different siblings have different traits. So how much are we responsible for the shortcomings? That was my question.
So now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge everybody in accordance with their own aptitudes and capacities. So think of it this way, that the Prophet said, everyone will be judged in accordance with their level of intellect. And in America, we find this notion with treated as people with diminished responsibilities because they do not have the same empathy as anybody else has, so for them to commit a crime is far easier, and therefore the responsibility is diminished. So when you talk about responsibility, it is in accordance with the way we are within ourselves. That is how responsibility is seen. Even though in this world of ours there are set standards, but in the inner life, the responsibility is in accordance with the way we are and our aptitudes. There is one more thing that I want to explain here. Now, the context in which we take birth determines the level of responsibility we have. So even though it is not our doing, but the fact that we have woken up in that context shows that the level to which we understand determines our responsibility. So for example, if somebody were to cut my hand, now that's no fault of mine. It was imposed upon me. Now, how do I interact with that cutting of the hand? Do I become enraged? Do I cut that person's hand? Do I swear at them? Do I curse at them? Do I forgive them? Do I thank Allah for allowing me to forgive? Do I bear the pain and think of others who are also in pain and become more kinder and become kinder towards the plight of the others as well by saying, well, now I can relate to the pain that you are feeling. So the question of responsibility is in accordance with our aptitude. However, if we are created deformed due to the genetic makeup of our parents, in that deformed state is our test. That how do we now look at this situation and bring the best of our humanity out through it, and how do we claim our godly status through those limitations.